Good morning, everybody. Glad to be back here. Looks like it's going to be kind of a sunny-ish day. So let's get some reading done so we can get outside and enjoy the weather, even though it's a bit chilly. Remember, if you're just listening, what are you going to do? Make that movie in your head so you know what's happening in the story and you can think about the characters and the plot and the setting. The plot, the things that are happening, the setting, the where and the when. Okay? So we left off on chapter 29 for those of you following along in your book. That's a page 145. Chapter 29 is called Start with the Kersey and Finish with the Thread. Miggery Sow's luck continued. On her first day on the job as a castle servant, she was sent to deliver a spool of red thread to the princess. Mind, said the head of the serving staff, a dour woman named Louise. She is royalty, so you must make sure to curtsy. How's that? Shouted Meg. You must curtsy, shouted Louise. Gore. Yes, ma'am, said Meg. She took the spool of thread from Louise and made her way up the golden stairs to the princess's room, talking to herself as she went. Here I am, off to see the princess. Me, Miggery Sow, seeing the princess up close and personal-like. And first off, I must curtsy, because she is the royalty. Uh-oh. At the door to the princess's room, Meg had a sudden crisis of confidence. She stood for a moment, clutching the spool of thread and muttering to herself. Now, how did that go? She said. Give the princess the thread and then give her a curtsy? No. First the curtsy and then the thread. That's it, Gore. That's right. That's the order. Start with a curtsy and then the thread. She knocked on the princess's door. Enter, said the pea. Meg, hearing nothing, knocked again. Enter, said the pea. And Meg, still hearing nothing, knocked yet again. Maybe, she said to herself, the princess ain't to home. But then the door was flung wide, and there was the princess herself staring right at Miggery Sow. Gore, said Meg, her mouth hanging open. Hello, said the pea. Are you the new serving maid? Have you brought me my thread? Curtsy I must, shouted Meg. She gathered her skirts and dropped the spool of thread, stuck a foot out and stepped on the spool, rocked back and forth for what seemed like a long time, both to the watching princess and to the rocking Meg, and finally fell to the floor with a Miggish thug. Whoopsie, said Miggery Sow. The pea couldn't help it. She laughed. That's all right, she said to Meg, shaking her head. It's the spirit of the thing that counts. How's that? Shouted Meg. It's the spirit of the thing that counts, shouted P. Thank you, miss, said Meg, and she got to her feet. Looking at the princess, she looked down at the floor. First the curtsy, and then the thread, Meg muttered. Pardon? Said the pea. Gore, said Meg, the thread. She dropped to her hands and knees to locate the spool of thread. When she found it, she stood back up and offered it to P. I brought you your thread, didn't I? Lovely, said the princess as she took the thread from Meg. Thank you so much. I cannot seem to hold onto a spool of red thread. Every one I have disappears somehow. Are you making a thing? Asked Meg, squinting at the cloth in the pea's hand. I am making a history of the world. My world, said the pea, in tapestry. See, here is my father, the king, and he is playing the guitar because that is something he loves to do and does quite well. Here is my mother, the queen, and she is eating soup because she loved soup. Soup? Gore! That's against the law. Yes, said the princess, my father outlawed it because my mother died while she was eating it. Your ma's dead? Yes, said the pea. She died last month. She bit her bottom lip to stop it from trembling. Ain't that a thing? Said Meg. My ma is dead too. How old were you when she died? Bold was I? Said Meg, taking a step back away from the princess. I'm sorry then. No. How old? How old were you? Shouted the pea. Not but 6, said Meg. I'm sorry, said Princess, and she gave Meg a quick, deep look of sympathy. How old are you now? 12 years. So am I, said the princess. We're the same age. What is your name? She shouted. Meggery Sow, but most just calls me Meg. And I saw you once before, princess. You passed me by on a little white horse. On my birthday it was, and I was in the field with Uncle Sheep, and it was sunset time. Did I wave to you? Asked the princess. Eh? Did I wave? Shouted the pea. Yes, nodded Meg. But you didn't wave back? Said the princess. I did, said Meg, only you didn't see. Someday I will sit on a little white horse and wear a crown and wave. Someday, said Meg, and she put her hand to touch her left ear. I will be a princess too. Really? Said the pea, and she gave Meg another quick, deep look, but said nothing else. When Meg finally made her way back down the golden stairs, Louise was waiting for her. How long, she roared, did it take you to deliver the spool of thread to the princess? Too long? Guessed Meg. That's right, shouted Louise, and she gave Meg a good clout on the ear. You are not destined to be one of our star servants. That is already abundantly clear, dear. No, ma'am, said Meg. That's all right, though, because I aim to be a princess. You? A princess? Don't make me laugh. This, reader, was a little joke on Louise's part, as she was not a person who laughed. Ever. Not even at the notion as ridiculous as Meggery Sow becoming a princess. Chapter 30, To the Dungeon. At the castle, for the first time in her young life, Meg had enough to eat. Eat she did. She quickly became plump, and then plumper still. She grew rounder and bigger and bigger, Only her head stayed small. Reader, as the teller of this tale, it is my duty from time to time to utter some hard and rather disagreeable truths. In the spirit of honesty, then, I must inform you that Mig was the tiniest bit lazy. And two, she was not the sharpest knife in the drawer. That is, she was a bit slow-witted. Because of these shortcomings, Louise was hard-pressed to find a job for Maigre Sow that she could effectively perform. In quick succession, Meg failed as a lady-in-waiting. She was caught trying on the gown of a visiting duchess. A seamstress. She sewed the cloak of the riding master to her own frock and ruined both. And as a chambermaid, she was sent to the room to clean. She stood open-mouthed and delighted, admiring the gold walls and floors and tapestries, and exclaiming over and over again, "Gor, ain't it pretty? Gor, ain't it something then?" And did no cleaning at all. And while Meg was trying and failing at these many domestic chores, other important things were happening in the castle. The rat in the dungeon below was pacing and muttering in the darkness, waiting to take his revenge on the princess. And upstairs in the castle, the princess had met a mouse, and the mouse had fallen in love with her. Will there be consequences? You bet. Just as Meg's inability to perform any job well had its consequences, for finally, as a last resort, Louise sent Meg to the kitchen, where Cook had a reputation for dealing effectively with difficult help. In Cook's kitchen, Meg dropped eggshells in the pound cake batter. She scrubbed the kitchen floor with cooking oil instead of cleanser. She sneezed directly on the king's pork chop moments before it was to be served to him. "Oh, of all the good-for-nothings I have ever encountered," shouted Cook. "Surely you are the worst, the most cauliflower-eared, the good-for-nothingest. There's only one place left for you, the dungeon." "Eh?" said Meg, cupping a hand around her ear. "You are being sent to the dungeon. You are to take the jailer his noontime meal. That will be your duty from now on." Reader, you know that the mice of the castle feared the dungeon. Must I say that the humans feared it too? Certainly it was never far from their thoughts. In the warmest months, a foul odor arose out of the dark depths and permeated the whole castle. And in the still cold nights of winter, terrible howls issued from that dark place, as if the castle itself was weeping and moaning. "It's only the wind," the people of the castle assured each other. "Nothing but the wind." Many a serving girl had been sent to the dungeon bearing the jailer's meal, only to return white-faced and weeping, hands trembling, teeth chattering, insisting that they would never go back. And worse, there were whispered stories of those servant girls who had been given the job of feeding the jailer, who had gone down the stairs and into the dungeon, and who had never been seen or heard from again. Do you believe that this will be Meg's fate? gore. I hope not. What kind of story would this be without Mig? Listen, you cauliflower-eared fool, shouted Cook. This is what you do. You take the tray of food down to the dungeon, and you wait for the old man to eat the food, and then you bring the tray back up. Do you think you can manage that? I reckon so, said Mig. I take the old man the tray, he eats what's on it, and then I bring the tray back up. Empty it would be then. I bring the empty tray back up from the deep downs. That's right, said Cook. Seems simple, don't it? But I'm sure you'll find a way to bungle it. Eh? Said Meg. Nothing, said Cook. Good luck to you. You'll be needing it. She watched as Mig descended the dungeon stairs. They were the very same stairs, reader, that the mouse Despereaux had been pushed down the day before. Unlike the mouse, however, Mig had a light on the tray with the food. There was a single flickering candle to show her the way. She turned on the stairs and looked back at Cook and smiled. That cauliflower-eared, good-for-nothing fool, said Cook, shaking her head. What's to become of someone who goes into the dungeon smiling, I ask you? Reader, for the answer to Cook's question, you must read on. That's where we're going to stop today. Tomorrow we'll start with chapter 31. Have a great day. Enjoy some sunshine.